Well, hello, everybody. Hi, I'm so happy you're here. I'm Christy Whitman with the Quantum Success Show, and I have some friends. We're actually giggling in the studio, already having fun before we started. Amazing Carrie Campbell and Brian Grasso.
Yes, ma'am.
Grasso, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Correct. Awesome. So I'm going to read a little bit of information about Brian and Carrie, but I just love these two, and you are going to too. So Brian and Carrie. Brian, hang on, hold on. Brian and Carrie are the hosts of the Brian and Carrie in the Morning, a 5-day-a-week live show that offers daily mindset training and teaches people how to eliminate their limits. Love that. Brian and Carrie are the creators of Eliminate Your Limits mindset system and have spent decades together and individually in the trenches coaching and working with people on reaching their greatest levels of success and happiness in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships. They came together as a couple in 2009 with a fairy tale romance that makes Cinderella jealous, but speaks openly about how the journey wasn't all rainbows in the beginning. They traveled through their own individual challenges in the relationship, health, and business to get to where they are today. Throughout and during the process of feeling the pull to greater purpose of obligation to share their secrets with the world, they are together, and they are here in the studio, and I am super excited. Carrie, Yay. Brian. Yay!
Thanks for having us. This is great.
This is fun.
So
You guys are fun.
let's just continue the fun conversation we were having before.
Because they made us stop.
Right.
Not you.
I know.
We had to pause.
And I also
the
want
timekeepers.
to,
The timekeepers.
and I also want to invite Rob into this conversation because Rob is awesome.
I'm just the voice off camera, so
No one's ever just the voice off camera.
You were kind of the catalyst of fun.
right.
So I'm all
Yes.
for that, having you
Yes.
involved.
He's awesome. So tell everybody how you met. Tell your fairy tale story.
Oh, I'm going to look to you because I like it when you tell this story.
Yeah, I always get tagged to tell this story, but I think it's because you like the way I tell it.
Yeah, but I'll pick up where I normally pick
Okay.
up. Yeah.
They've got their
We do. We
We
have
do.
it down.
This is almost like a shtick now, but no, I mean, essentially, in a past career, I worked with young athletes, and there
Because
was
you're
a,
a small man, so
I am, yeah. I need to work out.
Yeah.
I do. That was just funny. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, the pause was awesome. I love it. I kept doing it on purpose. But no, I got invited to Montreal. I lived in Chicago at the time. I got invited to Montreal to do a seminar in youth athletics by an organization, and I happily went.
Because you're a Canadian, you lived in Toronto,
I
right?
was from Toronto
Okay.
originally. I moved to Chicago to be the performance coach for the U.S. national synchronized skating team. So I was in Chicago for about 12 years. But a lot of what I was doing was global. So I would go to Sweden, Italy, Australia, New Zealand, all over Canada to do these seminars.
So awesome.
Yeah, well, it was a beautiful, blessed life I had, and I went up to Montreal, and it's one of those just like funny moments you remember so distinctly. But I was in the parking lot of a restaurant because the organizer that brought me up to Montreal, we were having dinner, and we were standing in the parking lot because she kept raving about this assistant she had named Carrie, and that we were waiting for Carrie to come and join us, and we were just going to stand in the parking lot until she got there. And the funny part of the story is that I tuned out. I stopped listening to this woman completely because across the parking lot, I saw this vision of perfection get out of her car and start walking towards the restaurant. I was like, God, that is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh
She was
my
just
God.
gorgeous and full of grace and elegance.
See, this is why I let him tell the story.
Yeah. Well, but it's not hyperbole.
Good
Like this is like
choice.
honestly what happened, right? And so, but as she got closer to us, I realized she was walking towards us, and I thought, oh my God, this is Carrie, and it was. So I got introduced to Carrie that night. We had a nice weekend. I gave the seminar. I absolutely was head over heels for Carrie. The rest of the weekend, I tried to play it off all cool. But to fast track the story, 3 years went by after that weekend. We had no communication, no phone calls.
Why?
No emails. Well, I was in a relationship. Carrie was married.
married. Okay.
Yeah. So we had no communication. But I was still doing my work in the same industry, and I was still living in Chicago. And I was driving to Minnesota to do a seminar there. And if you know the geography well, Chicago and Minnesota is not that far.
Right.
But the traffic can be horrendous. So I left at like 2 o'clock in the morning because I was a maverick back then and didn't care. But on this deserted stretch of highway, a deer cut across my car. I was driving a little Toyota Yaris, and I hit it. And my car did 3 rotations. And
Oh my gosh, Brian.
my car was totaled and I was unscathed. But it was a moment because I tell you, if you've ever been on a stretch of highway at 2 o'clock in the morning where there's no lights, there's no sign of life. You got to walk 45 minutes just to get a cell phone signal to call the first responders. I had a conversation with myself that moment, and I had a conversation with my then roommate when I got back home. And she said to me, have you ever fallen in love with somebody and not told them? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, tell them now. So I sent Carrie a message that night, and I told her the truth. I had fallen in love with her 3 years before, and that I had no expectations at all, because I knew she had kids and she was married, and I was single at the time. But I said, this is what happened to me. It was a challenging night for me, and I just kind of came face to face with my mortality. So I don't want to die not having you know that I fell in love with you that night.
Wow. Okay.
Can I pick it up from there?
Yeah, this is your turn.
I got to give the rest of the story now. So what happened is I got a message from Brian Grasso, and you have to appreciate that he was like the leader in youth fitness, and I was certified under his organization.
kind of
So
a
he
big
was
deal.
like the guru of the industry that I was in at the moment. So I was like, I get this message from Brian Grasso, and it really was a beautiful message, professing everything he just said to me. And, and there was just something like that pulled me to it. Like, I was just like, there's a connection here. There's something I need to pursue, right? And I had been tainted from my past relationship, but I went full steam ahead into it. And so we exchanged messages back and forth for the whole weekend. But then 3 days later, we got on the phone, and 3 nights in a row. So it was a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Wednesday. We spoke from 9 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock in the morning, 3 nights in a row. And the way that I always tell the story is the first night, we're like, I think this is it. And by the time we got to the second night, we were like, oh, this is it. And by the third night, we were like, how do we make it happen? Yeah. And he moved up 2.5 months later.
I got a $750 phone bill.
Yeah.
I also want to add for those 3 nights. But
Company
that was
wasn't
worth
too
it.
happy with that
That's
one.
okay. I own
But
the
that's
company.
the over under of the story.
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's how we got together as a couple.
What month was it that you moved to Montreal?
February.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Really?
For Mr. Yeah.
Crazy. I think you told me that, but no, it was February. I still remember that day.
He's behind your head making
Yeah.
funny faces and stuff.
He's so awesome.
He is pretty
I just
awesome.
met him, but I love him already.
No, he's the coolest.
He is.
Yeah.
But no, I still remember that I had a lease on an apartment in Chicago. I had a roommate. I had a business I owned that was thriving. I had all my friends there. I'd been there for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed, Carrie and myself, that we would exchange. She would come to Chicago. I would go to Montreal every once in a while to see each other. But in October, when my lease expired, I would use from February till October to get my business and my affairs in order. Then I'd move, right? She had 2 kids. I didn't want to displace them, so I'd move back to Canada. But on February, was it 27th?
27th, yeah.
At 11 o'clock at night. Apparently, I'm fond of driving it late at night. But on February 27th at 11 o'clock, I texted Carrie and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'll be there in 17 hours.
Yeah.
I got in my car. I stacked a little duffel bag full of a change of clothing, said goodbye to my roommate, and left.
And I told him just not to get killed on the road before he got to.
Yeah,
Which-
don't hit Bambi
Because
on
there
the
was
way.
there was like winter
For the record,
storms
Rob,
coming
Bambi
through
hit
and
me. I just
everything.
want to be clear on that.
I was just like, just make it here safe and sound.
Yeah.
Just make it here safe and sound. So that's
yeah,
how it all
we've been
started.
inseparable ever since, yeah.
Pretty much inseparable,
Yeah.
yeah. Every now and then we have to go away from each other, but
Not a fan.
not a
Not a
fan.
fan.
You guys are awesome.
Well, you
I
guys are
love
too.
it.
You guys.
We are, I'm pretty fortunate to have
Mr.
looking
over
here
there.
at Mr. over
I
there.
keep wanting to look behind me because he's awesome.
No, it's funny. We did the same. And there's, I'm glad that you brought that up because some people will say long distance relationships can't work. So that's 2 evidence right there.
We
because
have
Frederic
all
and
the
I are
reasons.
so-
We had all the reasons in the world why, and that's why I think we talk so much about our stories because there's so many people that, perceive so many limits in their life of things and reasons why they can't do things. And we had, insofar as our relationship, we had all the reasons. I had 2 kids. We lived in different countries, immigration. You had a company that was grounded in the States. Like we had every potential, not to mention our own histories of relationships that scarred us and left
Of
us,
course.
having our own challenges. But we just were like, you know what? Let's just do this and let's make it work. And that was our commitment to each other.
It was.
Was that like no matter what, we're gonna make it through all the hard times and all those moments, and we did.
I had to tell you, because you wrote her bio.
Yeah.
And I heard it for the first time last night before you sent it over to Christy. I loved it. I think you did a great job with
Yeah,
it.
it's
Good job,
amazing.
Carrie.
But my favorite part of what you said there is that it wasn't always rainbows.
Yeah.
And the whole reason we say let's eliminate your limits is because we had limits.
Yeah.
So the fairy tale is beautiful, it is. But then I got to Montreal, and the first 2 days were as blissful and as romantic.
Yes.
But then I became a stepdad in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And you had an ex-husband who
Yep.
wasn't altogether happy with that.
Right.
And I had stories in relationships and stories in money, and you had stories in relationships and stories in business. And I mean, it took some time and it wasn't pretty.
Okay, so
But,
let me pause
yeah.
you for a second, because first of all, this is important, because I agree with you. Frederic and I, people say, oh my God, you guys are so perfect.
Yeah.
We did 10 years of like deep growth on his part, deep growth on my part, healing all that crap that
Absolutely.
we brought in from everything else, from past relationships, from all those places that, we decided to close down instead of open our heart. And I'm happy, so happy to say we're on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Will there be stuff that we still have to work through for the rest of our marriage?
course.
Because there's no
Of course.
perfection,
Yeah.
of course.
Right. There's no perfection. And of course, the kids. I could see where the kids come into play. And as they get older, they try to manipulate and stuff. And we have to like stay, okay, we're on the same team,
Yeah.
and stay
Absolutely.
together. And so there's challenges or there's, opportunities for growth in any stage of your relationship, especially if it's a long-term thing,
Right.
right? But to say that it's all sunshine and rainbows, it's unrealistic. And I'm
Completely.
appreciating that we're having this conversation because people think, oh, it just got so hard, then I'm out. But
Absolutely.
and even what you're saying, people can find an excuse or a reason
Mm-hmm.
not to get into a relationship. Same kind of thing. I was working as a pharmaceutical, I was working in a biotech company as a sales training manager.
Wow.
And I already been an author of 2 books. This is like what I want to do. I was getting the best training, which really helped me become like a really awesome creator of programs. Like the programs that I create are really, really solid, and people get a lot of transformation through them.
Right.
Sure.
And so that was like, I felt like I got that type of education working in corporate America. But I met him, and it was like he had a brick and mortar business. Everything. He was from Montreal. I mean, he wasn't going.
Right.
And I knew I wanted to be a coach full time, and so I had to just leave. And I left that. It was over $100,000 a year job, and so it's like it's security and all that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we would see each other every 2 weeks, and we would talk there wasn't a day that we didn't go by that we would talk.
Yeah.
Sure.
And oh my God, on February 2nd, the snowbank is higher than the car next to it. I'm like,
Right?
what?
We both moved
What am
into
I
crazy
doing
places. Montreal is not funny
Right.
in
No,
winter. I mean, it's a beautiful place.
and I lived
wonderful
in
people.
Chicago.
Right. So, I mean, which is wintry, but not Montreal wintry.
Well, I
mean,
remember
it's-
moving to Chicago. I lived in Arizona my whole entire life. It was my first winter there, and I'm having to pump gas. And for the first time ever, I felt like someone was stabbing my face, and my nose hairs were frozen. I was
Right?
like,
Oh, it's
that is the
winter
weirdest
face.
thing
I love
ever.
that.
My
Winter
nose
face.
hairs are like frozen. What is that? I didn't even know I had nose hairs.
E-
It was like-
Every winter, I have the same conversation with myself. I'm like, you know what? The wind hurts my face. Why do I live in a place where the wind,
Wind
hurts
hurts
my
your
face?
face.
I don't understand that. Why am I here?
Right.
Did you feel
Be
like
worth it.
I was getting stabbed by
Oh,
1,000
yeah.
knives in my face as
I
I'm
mean,
pumping gas? I'm like,
You're from Arizona. That's twice as bad.
and
I'm from Toronto.
I called my
so-
mom that day and I said, Mom, it's 70 below with the wind chill. She goes, oh, it's 70 here. I'm like,
Not funny.
Some people are
That's
like,
not
I don't even know that it could
funny.
get that cold, right? Just coming back to the whole like the journey, right, of the relationship,
Yes.
because we are really big about sharing our story
Yeah,
from not from the victimized place of like oh, look at us, this is where we were, like, but we want to share it to inspire, because I think that so many people think that perfection is out there, and I think that we're misled by our current society and the motivational industry, the self-help industry, that there is a lot out there that preaches perfection.
Oh, yeah, I hate
and there just is no perfection,
No.
and when we, insofar as relationships, like this, this is how we always look at relationships, but it really applies to everything. Like, you fall in love, but you have to create a relationship.
beautiful. I love when
and
you say
and
that.
it,
Oh,
it,
that's
it is a
beautiful.
process.
Say that again.
You fall in love, but you have to create the relationship,
I love
right?
that.
And that
So
is what
true.
we learned really early on. And because no two relationships are the same, right? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that I had stories and negative stories in a relationship until I was in a relationship again.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're coming at me, and you're like, what's going on? This isn't the girl who I talked to on the phone. And I'm like, I know, I don't know where this came from.
But you had a certain level of awareness, and that's where I want to stop for a minute, because both of you committed to each other and committed to being together. You had a certain level of awareness, and you also must have already had an idea of what that relationship. Did you sit down and share like a common vision, or what
a great
did you do
question.
as far as the, I'm all about the inner success,
Yeah.
right? There's alignment and momentum. That's what my book is about in a nutshell. It's like, how do you get aligned so you could take the proper momentum in anything you want to create, right?
Absolutely.
So how did you have to talk to yourself? Like, what did you do to come together?
Well, if I could start, pursuant to
Yeah.
your first point, self-awareness, that's our big shtick as well. It's everything. We always tell people self-awareness is the panacea. It's the cure-all.
Yeah.
So if you're self-aware, it doesn't mean that everything or anything becomes perfect, especially immediately, but it gives you a foundation on which to grow. And at first, we were not aware. I was not aware that I had relationship stories.
Right.
I was not aware that I had financial stories. And we were near bankruptcy at one point as well. I mean, we really hit the skids for a while, and self-awareness was part of the issue, right? So we gained that first. If I were to backtrack, we actually accepted things first, didn't we? And I want to be clear on that. When I say self-acceptance or acceptance at large, what we did was we accepted that the reality we were currently living didn't have to be reality.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people get stuck
Yeah.
in that they see it as I am overweight, I am financially, in the crapper right now, where I'm not happy in my relationships, I'm not happy in life, I'm not fulfilled. That's the way it's always going to be.
Right.
That's where we started. We accepted it didn't have to be this way. And then I think this is where relationships make mistakes. Of course we came together, but I'd say 75% of what we did energetically was work on ourselves. I became self-aware of me. I became really aware of the bound nature and the way I would react to Carrie as opposed to respond to her, or how my masculine energy was just way too dominant in certain parts. So I was being more assertive than necessary.
Pick her up, throw her on the bed.
Yeah, well, I mean, although she was really cool with that
There
part.
ain't nothing wrong with that. Just so
I was gonna
everybody
say,
knows.
chime in, right?
Yo, you can throw me anywhere. I was like all with you on the whole flow, and then Christy just threw that in, and I was
Which,
like, "What? Wait,
hey.
are we talking about sex?
Yeah.
Okay."
Because that's cool too.
I'm sorry, I
Don't
just
be.
went there. And
I
I
love
just,
it.
I'm just getting this picture of this big masculine guy.
Well,
I'm
the
sorry,
first
my mind
time
just
I
went-
was involved being thrown up against a wall. So
Wait, by me?
yeah, don't you remember? Like right up against the door in your apartment.
But okay, for the
Wow, we're going there.
For the viewers, it was in a good way.
Does my face not express the good way?
Because
gonna
that
say,
could sound bad.
Because that sounded as though I accosted you, which I did not.
So we're just all clear. We're talking about sex. We're talking about good sex up against a door.
I love it.
So,
I remember.
Hey,
so there we go.
good
I
subject.
was very present in that
We've never
moment.
talked about sex on this show before. Let's
Really?
Have we not?
go
You
there.
put Brian and
Yeah.
Carrie anywhere, we're going to talk about sex.
Frederic?
But can I continue with what you were saying?
Yes,
You may.
please.
Okay, because
Proceed.
I actually want to loop around what you were saying because okay, sex. Go. No, but first of all, you dropped some of our language that people listening might not know what that means because you said bound nature.
Okay,
Right,
my
and so no, but inside of the work that we do inside of our system, we refer to bound nature as essentially all non-serving thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and physical symptoms, right? I think that there's a lot of confusion out in the world nowadays, like ego, what's not
Right,
ego.
right.
People really don't
Is
know
it
how to
the enemy?
compartmentalize it
Yeah.
all. So we put our own language around non-serving negativity as bound nature so people can really start to visualize and disconnect from that. But, you start talking about acceptance. And really and truly, that flows into, what is our 4 A's in our Eliminate Your Limit system, which is acceptance, awareness, accountability, and adaptation. And I think the fact that you mentioned the individual work is so essential,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Because
critical.
we really stepped into the acceptance that there is no absolute truth. Maybe I don't have to be reacting this way to you. Maybe I don't have to be feeling this way, right? And so once we accept, then we become even more aware of our reactions and what's going on, but then we take accountability. As opposed to pointing the finger at somebody else and saying, this is what you're doing to cause this, we take accountability for ourselves and how we can create change, and then the
Yeah.
adaptation follows, so.
Can I hijack for a second? You know what?
Can I just looking at her like
Yeah.
she's so beautiful.
Isn't she? It's
I
gross.
just
So gross. I love it.
no,
You know,
she-
can I
and
tell you something?
elegant and
She
just
is.
smart, and I just love you.
And
Carrie.
I'm not doing the contemporary man thing by making sure
We're all
that
just like looking at us going.
making sure I don't just talk about the exterior perfection of my wife, but honestly, it's a very interesting thing. You are ostensibly beautiful. You know that because I tell you every single day.
Thank you, Buffy.
But when you're unaligned, when you are in our what we call bound nature, when there's something not right inside of you, you look different.
Of course, your physical self changes.
I'm
Oh,
telling
yeah.
it's true for all of us, of course.
course.
But I'm telling you, the beauty you see is 99% you on the inside. And I know that's true for all of us, but there's
Right.
just a radiance inside of you that just squeezes out of every pore. It's gross.
Oh, thank
I
you.
love it. Also, can I say one more thing? I just took a glance at the monitors. Okay, you know what? You're sitting back, all composed. I look like a hunchback. So, anyways, but it's because I'm so tall. And
You know what? Can I
so
tell
I'm
you?
like, so anyways, yeah, I got into a car wreck.
I purposely positioned myself and got up like this because I'm so short. I don't often fit in things. Like my feet don't even touch the floor on the toilet seat when I'm sitting on the toilet.
Toilet and sex.
Right?
That's what we're talking about.
Whatever. It's all
We're going
good.
there.
Right?
I love it. Rob, you got anything to say?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you first met him, obviously it was love at first sight, but he did not tell you that for some time.
Yeah.
How did you feel
That's a great question.
about him?
It's so great that you asked that because actually a lot of
good.
people always ask us that
I
question,
want to
right?
steal Rob. I want to take Rob home to
So,
Montreal.
you know, because a lot of people ask us that. So the truth of the matter is, at that time in my life, I was really mired in a very toxic relationship. If I was awake, but I was numb, you know, like in the middle of a day, right? So, you know, I'm not going to say that I fell in love with him at first sight because that would be an inaccuracy. But what mattered to me at that time in my life, which was something looking back on, I realized was safety. And I didn't realize until looking back how much safety I found in him and comfort I found in him. Because, you know, I remember one of the days that we were at this conference years ago, we ended up play wrestling. And
Yeah,
he
yeah,
threw
we
me
did.
up on his shoulder
Yeah,
and we
I
were
did.
like grappling on the floor.
Yeah, we
which
were.
was really outside. I think that was a plan of his, but
Yeah,
that
it
was
was.
really outside of of my character to do because I was in a very toxic relationship where that's the kind of thing that I would have gotten in trouble for because of jealousy issues and stuff like that. But I just allowed myself to be free with him. And looking back on it was when I realized how much that I just kind of gave myself to the space that we were in, even on that weekend, 3 years prior to him connecting with us, which is why I think that the feeling was just so profound.
So, but when you got my message, you knew right away.
Oh, when I got the message, I was just like, I had a friend staying with me at the time, and I got this message, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really what I did, like a schoolgirl. I was like, Brian Grasso has a crush on me. Like that's the exact language I used. And there was just really, you know, I think one of the things that's interesting is anybody who refers to like, you know, when it's it, like you know it, you think those people are crazy until you've experienced that. And then you're like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about when they say that they knew it was right. And I just knew it was right. I gave
I
everything.
just want to add because I think what you said there was so poetic on one level.
Yeah.
Specifically, all the research says the exact same thing, that for people to self-actualize, i.e. become the greatest versions of themselves, 3 things have to be present in a community or in a relationship. And they're in order. The first is safety. The second is inclusion. Like they feel like they have to belong.
Right.
And the last is respect. And I love that what you realized is you felt safe
Yeah.
and therefore included.
Yeah.
And that you let me touch you even though it was play wrestling.
Yep.
And it was, you had stories about a relationship. You felt respected by me.
Right.
So I think people listening, that's a really good thing
That's
to remember.
huge.
Yes.
Safety, inclusion, and respect.
Beautiful.
That's what your classrooms, your relationships, your parenting should have those 3 factors always present.
Which really speaks to the whole I didn't sit back with my little notebook and be like, okay, we're safety check.
Right, right,
You know,
right.
like it was an unconscious process,
Sure.
right? And I think that that's one of the things that we work so so diligently in what we do is to help people be able to kind of understand their unconscious and be able to listen to it and be able to distinguish between those feelings and be able to sink into moments like that, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Hey, well, don't feel so special. I'm sure Brian could take me and throw him up on his shoulder with no problem the size of
I
this
thought
guy.
you were going to say up against the wall,
Yeah,
and I was like,
well,
this is a whole new show.
I wouldn't be able to stop it, that's for sure.
I have a particular infatuation with Rob. He doesn't know it yet, but it's true.
Oh, isn't he awesome?
He is your whole crew is just fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you how I came to know Rob Trigg.
I want to hear it.
He was actually a DJ.
I used to be somebody.
He was a DJ on the KUPD here
Right on.
in Arizona. But I would listen in the morning to Dave Pratt. And so I think I told you about Dave Pratt. We're in the Dave Pratt studios, where
Right.
it's actually Star Worldwide Studios. Kyle is Dave Pratt's son behind there. I mean, it's like a family affair. But Rob and Dave have been
38 years.
38 years. they've
We're
known
an old
each other.
married couple.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
Amazing.
awesome. though.
And I bet
Do
you
you feel
had to
safe with him?
create that relationship.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we grew together.
Yeah.
I mean, without consciously saying, I'm dating a friend. you create a friendship
Absolutely.
over these years, and we know each other inside and out.
Absolutely. It's
so to
one of the
speak.
things that we talk about all the time, because like you fall in love, but you create a relationship really does apply for every relationship. Like
does.
whether it's business, whether it's you
Kids.
fall in love with your
yeah,
child, but then you have to
absolutely.
create that, right? And I think that like unfortunately in our society nowadays, work is always connected to a challenge or a struggle or, oh, hard work. Do we really have to work at this? But for me, that's where the joy is, right? Like we strive, like we spend 90 minutes a day, every day, immersed in our own mindset practices as a couple that we, the stuff that we teach people. And we communicate about our growth, about our journey, about where we are, about where we're going, about what we might be experiencing as a challenge on that given day. 90 minutes a day, because we are committed to being the best version of ourselves, but of course together, because we know so many couples who don't even know what each other's vision are for their life, right?
So, it's so critical.
It's so essential.
And I love how you said that about essentially your business partner. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we have, I hate the word staff.
Our team.
We have a team of 16 worldwide. We have staff. We have team members in Latvia, in Cyprus, all over the U.S. and Canada. But we collect every Sunday together on a video call, and that is our job: is to establish, maintain, and grow the relationship that these 16 people have with themselves and each other. We don't talk tactics, strategies, or anything else business related on these team calls. It's all relationship development because they fell in love with the brand. That's why they wanted to work with team B and C.
Right.
So the love was there. You fall in love.
Right.
But now you have to create a relationship.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And that's what we do with our team. And that's in a business environment, let alone kids or marriages.
Our Sunday rules for Sunday calls is sharing, no questions.
Yeah.
Share, don't ask. Because, I think that, and that's something that we try to take, we all have how questions. We all have logistical questions. But we work really, hard to establish that culture of safety, of belonging, so that they can grow to be their best selves. Because if our team is developing themselves as individuals, that just creates a ripple that is going to be felt around the world. So
Precisely.
that's the Sunday calls are about sharing.
That's it.
I just had my entire team in a few days ago, and we did a whole just team building thing. And we
Perfect.
did healings, and had dinner together, and did a workshop together. It was a remarkable time for
Isn't it?
everybody.
Absolutely.
It's like family, right?
And it is. That I was gonna say. It's like I feel like they're my extended family.
Absolutely.
Same.
know?
Same with us.
Exactly, and it's important. So every day it never feels like work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just feel blessed that I get to do what I get to do, and then I get to come in this studio, and there's another family that David created with Rob and with Ed and literally with Kyle, and it's another family, and that's why I think I'm so attracted to the both of you, and that we have such a great connection. Is that we have that same philosophy.
Yeah.
I always say that Dave Pratt. He's one of the only people I know that never did personal development work, but is at that level of just abundance and expansion.
Sure.
It's like an X factor in some people, eh?
Yeah, it's
Like
like he
unconscious, conscious.
you read his
competence.
book.
Yeah.
He's got a great book, and it's like his stories. Just he had a vision. He had a vision, and he followed that vision. And then when he got married and met his wife Paula, and had 4 kids, it's like his vision changed.
Yeah. Same. I can relate.
So,
I was a
but he's still
bachelor.
following his vision.
Yeah.
And how important is
So
a
true.
vision?
It's so critical. It's your compass, right? I love how you phrase that. Like, my vision altered, or maybe the mobility of how I was going to get there changed, right? Look, I always say this. I was ready for the duty of becoming a stepdad. I wasn't expecting to fall in love. Like, no step parent really can consciously understand that until you experience. You got a little 4-year-old girl who all of a sudden starts calling you Bubby and hugging you every morning. It's like, I wasn't expecting to have my heart broken like this, like in the best way possible.
Right.
So I was ready for the duty. I wasn't expecting this tidal wave of love. And so having said that, my vision changed easy. I mean, the ultimate goal hasn't changed. The mobility of how I'm getting there has morphed, and that's fantastic. That's what it should be. But your vision's always your compass.
And I think that it always comes down to like how you're choosing to put the perspective on it, right? Because I think sometimes, I mean, let's just face it. Everybody's afraid of change to some degree, right? Like so many people are afraid of change, right?
And yeah, it's the only thing that is dependent.
Absolutely. and like,
Yeah.
that's what I was going to say. Like your vision changed, right? And I think so many people hear that and automatically think, oh no.
Yeah.
But oh no, yes, because it changed for the better. I mean, my vision changed for the better. We've done nothing but elevate each other.
100%.
And where we are at now and the things that we're working on now are things that I didn't even dream of 20 years ago when I was a, when I was a young
So can I say
teenager.
something without revealing for?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
You can give a tip off.
So depending on when you're watching the show, because it's going to be on the internet, Carrie and Brian are partnering with one of the top artists in music right now, and it's like exciting. And when you're allowed to talk about it, I'd love to have you back on and talk about
honor.
that amazing, getting that text from you and saying who you were partnering with, and then hearing your story and listening to this artist's music and having most of this music on my phone. And, it's like, for me, that's a wow. So I love
That
wow.
was exactly what Christy did, actually.
Yeah, I did. I'm like, wow.
She was like, wow.
I mean, I love wow stories. And I love, because clearly you didn't end up where you did at a concert with your daughter, not even, knowing much about this artist. It was all about her. Yeah. And to be able to have this opportunity. So I'm excited to have you back so you can actually talk about it.
I'm looking forward to that, yeah. And I was just talking about this on our show this morning, actually. I made the comment that I think whenever we go anywhere, so whether it's here today, this morning, whether it's to a conference, whether it's to a concert, I like carrying the ethos of like have the expectation of everything, but the attachment to nothing. And sometimes people look at me and say like, oh, expectation, that sounds kind of like full of yourself, right? But I think that when we're living in the world of abundance, we should have the expectation of everything good coming to us, right?
Absolutely.
So if I show up with the expectation that I'm going to gain and to grow, but the attachment to nothing, no attachment on the other side of what's going to come from things. No matter what environment we walk into, we always stand to climb up that ladder, another step, another rung on the ladder. So, that loops in a lot to the secret that isn't released yet to the public. But we'll for sure come back and share all of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Well,
Yeah.
I have loved having you both here. I know I want to continue this conversation after the cameras roll, but we have to stop the show at some point.
Right, I told you
We
20
could keep
minutes wasn't going to
going.
happen.
Yeah, we can keep going.
We're past due, are we?
20
So
minutes.
we're going to put Carrie and Brian's contact information under the video. Please let me know what you're taking away. I'm taking so much, I don't even know. I mean, I love that you fall in love, but you create a relationship. I think that's with anything when you manifest. It's like it shows up, and then what do you do with it? How do you treat it? How do you grow it? How do you expand it? A business is like that, So let us know what you're taking away. Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you, Rob, and have an amazing week.